Take you a little further, but I'll have to do it a lot faster. The path that I took goes uphill from the river at this point, and it goes to the lovely English-sounding town, it is England after all, of Heddon-on-the-Wall. And sure enough, it's there. A piece of it, about 100 yards of the old Roman wall, carefully set aside with the grass mowed. It's about 6 to 8 feet wide, but only about 2 feet tall, because after the Romans left in the 4th century, it was free building material. And a lot of the houses in that town, perhaps the church, were made from, who wants to carve a new stone when they're sitting right there? And so there's not much of the physical wall left, but it's everywhere around us. On my way to meet the wall, I ran into St. Albert's Church. It's a Norman church, one of those little chapels put up in the 11th century. You see them all the time around here, right? Of course not. And I was wandering around the churchyard, the building being locked, looking at the wonderful old graves and down the hill to the river where I could still see it. And the church warden saw me, and I was a little worried, but no, he was very eager to tell me all about the church, which I enjoyed. He pointed me to the windowsill of the Gothic expansion and pointed out that it used to be a Knights Templar's burial stone, because you could see the carving still on the stone. That's impressive. And over in the corner was a Celtic cross that had been used as a worshiping place even before the building had been built. It was a Christian visiting site before the building itself was erected. And it wasn't all about the old stuff. He told a story about how when he was a boy and going to school in the 1940s, that he looked up one afternoon on his way home from school, and there was an RAF Spitfire, were they called? And it was heading down and crashed into the local field, and the pilot perished. These are not stories you're going to encounter in Kent County, Michigan. Enriched by that, I walked a little further along and discovered, as my guidebook showed me, that the wall itself had vanished, being taken apart to build buildings and also to pave roads. And so now the road that the Romans had built to serve the wall had become the road that was made of the wall, on top of which laid other asphalt and macadam. So the wall itself was gone, but the ditch they dug in front of it was still there, and that was where the path went. And I went through this lovely path, little voles scurrying across the path, and occasional butterflies would light on the thistles. There were geese in there. Beatrix Potter was everywhere. And I thought, isn't this a splendid walk? And it truly was. And then I went over my first stile. Did I tell you about stiles? Stile is the word you use to describe the way you get over a stone wall, because there are no fences, there are only stone walls. Sometimes there's a gate. There's a lovely form of gate called a kissing gate, but I was alone, so I didn't enjoy the benefits. Then there are things where you actually go up and over the wall. Mostly they were called ladder stiles, literally a ladder built like a tent, up and over. And as I went up one and down the other, I came into a working pasture. Think about that. What is a working pasture? It's filled with cows. The grass is very green, and where it isn't green, there is fertilizer in abundance. And so for the next 4 days, when I wasn't stopped and looking at the great vistas of northern England, I was looking down to see whether I would step into something less charming than grass. And sure enough, on my 3rd day, when it was raining, and suddenly it was England again and not a storybook, and I was climbing up a ladder and down another one, and I saw a great deposit at the bottom of the ladder and said, no, I won't go there. I'll step over to the side where it's green. It was green. It was also wet. It was also very wet. It was so wet that when I put my foot down, it went up to the ankle. And suddenly the water that I saw was not the clean, clear waters of the River Tyne. No, it was the mucky, brown water of diluted fertilizer. And I was 3 miles into my walk and had 12 more to go. There were no pants in my backpack. There were no socks in my backpack. There were no shoes in my backpack. I had 3 choices: go back to where I came from, but if I did that, my bag wouldn't be there because it was already on its way to my next bed and breakfast. I could wait for a bus, and then I thought, I didn't come to take a bus. I came to walk. Why not? And so for the next 12 miles, my brown, wet feet and I marched across England. And the next day it happened again. In fact, it happened every day until I learned to rinse out 2 pairs of socks. And in the middle of the day, I would stop on a rock. I'd take off my shoes and socks and air my feet and look at the countryside, put on my next pair of socks and enjoy 5 minutes of dry feet. Of course, last week at this moment, I went down to the piano. I'm not going there again. I'm willing to walk in manure all day. I'm not willing to play the piano all day. But you'll know, you remember I sang very badly the Scarecrow's song about he would while away the hours conferring with the flowers if he only had a brain. This week I'm reminding you of that song that the Tin Man sings. When a man's an empty kettle, he should be on his mettle, and yet I'm torn apart. Just because I'm presuming that I could be kind of human if I only had a heart. You remember the rest. I'd be tender, I'd be gentle, and awful sentimental regarding love and art. I'd be friends with the sparrows and the boy who shoots the arrows if I only had a heart. Isn't it sweet? And it's more than something I know, it's something you know, because you were going along with me, weren't you? You were enjoying it too, and that's part of the fun. Because we all know all of these songs. You'll hear the Lions verses next week. We all have scenes in our head from the movie. We all can recite lines like, "Pay no attention to that man behind the curtain," or "I'll get you and your little dog too." But perhaps the familiarity, as comforting as it is, obscures something that I want to lift up a little bit today. All 4 travelers on that fabled journey are completely different from each other. There's a girl, an animated scarecrow, a man turned into a tin can, and a linguistic lion with no nerve. They have nothing in common. They are not the same species. They aren't even all animals. And I like this, because could there be a more perfect metaphor for liberal religion in Fountain Street Church than a motley crowd like that? Because are we not an assortment of cast-offs and misfits from more respectable places? And what unites us is our desire to go somewhere that's closer to the truth, closer to what is real. Last week, following on the Scarecrow's song, I said, liberal religion is the pilgrim path, and FSC, our church, is a pilgrim church, following the star of truth wherever it leads. So we have Christians searching to understand Christianity and agnostics trying to find out if they have to stay that way. We have part-time pagans and full-time atheists. We have Jews by ancestry and Buddhists by practice. We're about as diverse religiously as Dorothy and her friends on their road, and we're proud of it too. It's what we want. And yet, and this is the challenge I want to put in front of us today, when we look at other ways to be different, we're not so much. As diverse as we are spiritually, we are generally similar when it comes to race and class, politics, age, when it comes to questions of ability and sexuality, when it comes to questions of origins, we are far less diverse. And we have to ask ourselves at some level, if we are truly inclusive and truly accepting and truly tolerant, why are we not more different as people as well as different in our spiritualities? Now, I could go on an extended lecture about why this is true and get all sociological, but it comes down to this. We are a religion with a brain, but not a religion with a heart. That doesn't mean we don't have feelings, but it's not where we live as a faith. We can forget that for most people, religion is not about believing, but belonging. And they'll put up with an enormous amounts of weird belief to be part of a community that really receives them. The word religion, you have to remember, is not about belief at all. It comes from a Latin word for binding together. It's what holds people together. And belonging is a feeling we have, not a thought we have. It is not a concept, it's an experience. Belonging is a heart thing. I suspect that though our doors are wide open spiritually, we, and most other liberal churches, by the way, are not teeming with people because though we are open-minded, we're not as good at being open-hearted. I think we can get to be more open-hearted, though, and I think we can do this if we want to, but I'm going to tell you right now, it isn't going to be easy. If you thought the diverse religiosity part was hard, the diverse sociology part is even harder. Now, what you need to know is that your governing board, Paula being a member, decided that one of the things we should work on in the next 3 years as part of our strategic plan is diversity. That we need to look at this in all of its complexity. And I said, don't do it if you don't mean it, because this is hard work. But they stuck with it, and I'm very proud of them. Now, I spoke of education last week as one of our paths that we need to go down. That's the scarecrow wanting a brain. And the diversity thing is about the heart, because it isn't about attracting different kinds of people. It really is not about that. It's about the spiritual challenge of opening your heart to people you don't know and would not know unless you had to know, of making them a part of your life whether you're comfortable with them or not. Because you see, that's the challenge. And that's hard for us. It's hard for everyone. But if religion is not really about beliefs for us, the idea that the church could be anyone, in fact it is everyone, is hard for us. You know, let's remember how important it was that for the last 50 years, almost everyone in this church has a story of feeling unwelcome somewhere in their life, and they get here and suddenly they can exhale.